I'm pooping right now.
Okay, we just went back in time to before we did that stupid 10 to 15 minute spoiler-free review. Hello, welcome to episode 39 of To Be Honest, I'm Edison. I'm Jack. And my name is Josh. I refuse to participate. And we watch Avengers Endgame. Okay, so we just went back in time, and now let's talk about this movie in a real way. Let's talk about the nitty-gritty, about the details.
So did you guys know that time travel was a big part of this movie before you came into this? Did you just figure that out on your own, or did you read that somewhere?
That was the only way that they could make it work.
Yep.
I just knew that was the only way.
Well, your options are either time travel, go back and reverse things, and then have to deal with the consequences afterwards,
or find the time stones and use the power to reverse it,
or
in your timeline,
or like there's another, or like Thanos like has another plan that isn't quite fulfilled, and like it's basically either way. It just felt like you have to have the exact same movie as Infinity War, where you like gather all your resources and then like have this epic battle at the end. And that's what this movie just does. And I think, time travel or not, it would have eventually, like, boiled down to that.
God, seems like 1,000 years ago.
There's a moment where it was kind of fucking exhausting, actually. So anyway, so I did, and we can put it in this episode, I did predict the Ant-Man quantum realm bullshit in our Ant-Man and the Wasp review.
Like that they were going to use that to go back in time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that just held some kind of deeper significance, and yeah, that they were probably going to. That was going to be the vehicle through which they figure it out, go back in time, whatever.
Hank, Hope, Janet, guys. Okay, seriously, don't joke around. Bring me up. Let's go. Guys!
So we talked in our little spoiler thing about, like, at least I did, about how probably the first hour of this movie I really liked. And then after that first hour, it just went down and down and down to where I was like this.
So where's the cutoff point in that?
The cutoff point is probably after we meet the Avengers in the, like, post 5 years scene. You know, like, I was triggered by it because it hit a little bit too close to home, but fat beer drinking Thor was pretty funny to me. I liked it, even though it's like kind of an easy joke.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I thought it was like interesting because, you know, people always point like Chris Hemsworth, he's such a dreamboat. Oh my God, he's so hot and I love him as Thor.
My horror.
He would be my horror. And then they like kind of like flipped that on its head and had him be like a fat slob the whole movie. Like,
he's a good comedic actor too.
He is.
I think.
I actually remember reading as far as the Ghostbusters 2016 reboot, like he was the only thing that people pointed to as like a positive about it.
I remember that. I haven't seen that movie either, but I remember.
And I never
reviews.
will. I'll never see it.
But I think that they figured that out in Ragnarok. Like him playing Thor, he has good comedic timing, and also there's a lot of opportunity to kind of make fun of his character, because he starts off that the Thor series is very serious,
very self-serious, and like the first one was directed by Kenneth Branagh, who's like a famous Shakespearean actor, right? He's done plenty of other things, but you could like see that kind of influence in the first Thor movie with Natalie Portman. I found all of the Thor movies to just be dreadfully boring.
Even Ragnarok?
Ragnarok. So I should say Thor Ragnarok was more entertaining for sure. Thor 1 and Thor 2, especially Thor 2,
they were pretty bad.
Dreadfully boring.
Dreadfully boring.
Dreadfully, quite indeed.
I thought the fat Thor was like funny, or is like it's the exact just opposite, and it was almost like too easy. And I know you said it was easy, but it was like, what's the point? I know that you need like a redemption, but this felt like just so like too like silly.
Well, it's kind of like Hulk in the first movie, where you have this character, like his powers feel gutted by like just like his inability to like come to terms with what happened to him. where it's just like all of a sudden Thor doesn't feel like this powerful Avenger anymore. He's like this like fat slob who's just like tiptoeing around these scenes.
Well, and they kind of play up that with the Hulk too, how he's like nerdy Hulk. Bruce Banner and Hulk have merged now, and he's kind of like just this mild-mannered Hulk, right? Which also feels kind of neutered in that vein as Thor does. I thought that the like intelligent Hulk was also kind of an interesting twist. These were all things that, as they were happening when I was watching the movie, I was surprised by, because I didn't quite expect it to go forward that 5 years. I also thought it was an amazing touch, actually, that Captain America was like a grief counselor. You know, or not even necessarily a grief counselor, but he ran that like
support group.
Support group. Thank you. Yeah.
I thought that was so bad.
Well, see, I thought it was like, I don't know. I thought it was kind of fun, because of course that's what Captain America would do when he's not heroing anymore. Is he'd be like
just in like a weird church.
Yeah,
like
I think that,
or like a VA hall.
Yeah.
It would have been interesting if they had a montage of him at like a bunch of different support groups. Like he's America's coach. Like he's trying to get people like to like pull themselves up by
Please
the
accept
bootstraps.
this for reality.
It would be amazing if it branched off into like Fight Club 2 with Captain America. Like he goes to these support groups to feel something. Anyways, that's.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Did you notice though the man who was telling a story about his date was with another man?
Very open-minded.
Whoa!
I did notice that, and they were like trying to like count the points they were racking up with that.
With the SJW crowd, right? Oh, and then I guess we we might as well talk about it right now. So there were two scenes that really made me cringe. The first one was in the final battle. Captain Marvel comes back with her sassy new haircut, and she's like,
she became a lesbian.
I'm gonna fight Thanos. And then there's like, and she's not alone. And then the camera like pulls back to reveal literally every female character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe standing by Captain Marvel. Just like a total fucking jerk off, or as Josh said, bean flick.
Thank you for
it's just like
that.
throw subtlety out the window
Completely
and
out
they're
the
like
window.
we're gonna earn some applause in the movie theater with this one.
Yes.
Well, the grief counseling session was that was way subtle.
I was gonna say that was
like
definitely
nice.
earns
I
the
made fun of
subtlety.
it just now, but it was like, hey, whatever, that's fine.
It didn't.
They
like,
were trying to like draw attention to it, like we're talking about a gay couple.
I thought it was an interesting choice. Like they didn't have to do that. Like they could have just been like, we're not gonna say that, but they did. And who knows? Maybe the actor is gay, and that's like he
gave him some notes.
Yeah, he's like, anyways.
That's the type of subtlety I appreciate, though. When they do add things like that, I'm sure they're doing it very intentionally, and it's like, no, we have to have like a reference to like maybe somebody being gay in this. Of course, it's not going to be a main character, but
no weight to the character whatsoever. In fact, they're not going to be in it for more than 30 seconds. Well, but it's a complete opposite when at the very end
there's no subtlety whatsoever.
Yeah, and I guess like that's Brie Larson's arc. I don't want to get too far into the end. I want to kind of work
maybe we should
to it.
Pull back. But
well, the other scene I wanted to talk about was the scene with Anthony Mackie at the very end, who plays Hawkman bird guy.
Hawkeye.
No, Hawkeye is Jeremy.
Oh
Renner.
no, he plays Falcon.
Falcon, thank you. Who is now apparently going to take up the mantle of Captain America, and one he is
more
completely...
like Blacked in America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is devoid of charisma as an actor, but then also it was just
like up to this point, he played a guy over radio.
Yeah, basically. What's that, Falcon?
Cap, I'm on your left. Incoming.
This is the next plot point, Captain. Please get to it.
This was happening in the
Roger
scene.
that, Falcon. And just the idea that they're handing off the Captain America mantle to that guy, like I don't give a fuck that he's black. Have a black Captain America. That sounds great.
I don't care that he's black.
But don't make it fucking Anthony Mackie who's Captain America, because the dude has.
For some reason, yeah, he's not very.
Give it to Kendrick
charming.
Lamar.
Yeah, I mean, give it to fucking Kendrick Lamar. Is that what you said?
That is what I said.
You said Kendrick Lamar.
That's what I said.
Okay, I think he should have been.
Did you not see him play that crackhead on
Yeah,
Power?
in Power,
It was incredible.
I think that character would have been perfect for Falcon.
Amen. He keeps pawning his wingsuit.
Captain America's like, all right, it's the last one, okay?
This is the last one, okay?
Yeah, I'll take the bite. You know any Italianos?
So those are your cringe scenes.
Those are my big cringe scenes of like the I hate to use this term of like the Disney SJW agenda of like being inclusive to a fault.
Well, I think that they found out that they can market themselves very well when they do that. So
Yes.
It's corporatized diversity.
Yes, it is.
It is.
It's like
Manufactured diversity.
Yeah, manufactured, and it's come from like a think tank, and everyone's like said like this plays, and we need this, and it feels like just a product is being pushed out onto a conveyor belt.
It's disappointing. It's disappointing. So going back to the time as a plot device, I also kind of felt that was going to happen, but I read in a review where it was just like, oh, you know, time travel plays a role, and I was just like instantly like my heart dropped. I was like, well, I don't like how that sounds.
Reading reviews, I guess when I'm bored, I will read fan theories, because those guys take a lot of time and it's a lot of work to like think of these things. And
usually they're more creative than
they're probably movie. Like they deserve some sort of writing credits, because I'm sure these think tanks are going on Reddit and thinking,
I'm sure they are. Yeah.
Well, what do we? What is
that's actually a good idea. Let's pluck that.
Yeah. What does fuck Captain Marvel 66669 think?
420.
420. No, 420 is the other one.
Oh, okay.
He's the one that's like great theory. And I read all these different things, but the main thing was like quantum verse, either through time travel or alternate realities. That's what's going to happen. And that was like pretty much the consensus. So I went into this movie thinking, yeah, that's going to happen. I also went into this movie thinking, or knowing pretty much, that Thanos is going to die within the first 20 to 30 minutes. I think that's where he dies.
So going back to the beginning, as far as like the part of the movie that I really enjoyed, like I loved the scene of him like walking through his garden and like plucking his star fruit.
The armor as a scarecrow was such a good touch.
It was really good. And then he walks up the steps and you notice that he has like a limp to his gait.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, something's happened. And then you see him and you see like the scorched side of his body. And like I thought it was really fucking cool and really interesting. And then when they all break in and like slice off his arm and then slice off his fucking head, I was again surprised. I was like, oh cool.
That part surprised me.
Yeah, I didn't really expect that. Where do we go from here now? And then 5 years later.
Someone next to me was like, they were like, oh, I think their brain, like from a story standpoint, when it said 5, because it's like slowly appearing these words on the screen, 5 years, and they're like, ago. They were like, it has to be ago. There's no way that they go into the future.
Game, folks. It is decided already. We're going 5 years.
There's there's no way that this movie is gonna go in the future. It's gonna go back. We're gonna find something else out. And it's like
if
no.
it was like a 47-hour movie 5 years ago, and it's just all of the Marvel movies just played back to back.
Got him. Yeah, I thought it was funny that like he's like because this is immediately after. Like I think like a couple. Or 20 days, 21, 22 days.
Yeah, it says as much time as Tony Stark is in the spaceship, which is about 23 days or so.
Yeah, and so maybe a day or two after that, once he gets rescued by bright, beautiful Captain Marvel.
Which I there was a moment where I was like, huh, how's Tony gonna get out of this pickle?
Really?
It took me like 2 seconds to think of it.
And then like 5 seconds later, I was like, oh yeah, Captain Marvel. Yep, that's absolutely what it's gonna be.
What's that glowing light? It must be like a spaceship, right? Because like there's no way that one person can get out there. It's Captain Marvel.
Yeah, and so that was one big misstep for me. Was Captain Marvel, of like having her movie come out a month and a half ago, that explored her time on Earth, but didn't by any means explore her superhero career as like a cosmic Avenger, right? Of going to all these planets. And they didn't in shorthand of being like, well, where were you when we played? And she was like, there's problems like this all over the galaxy and only one me. And okay, I get it. But it would have really benefited, I think, even though they didn't include her that much, of having a second Captain Marvel movie that shows her exploits as like a intergalactic savior, superhero, whatever.
Police force.
And I think that's why she's not super heavy in this movie.
Yeah.
Because they are aware of that, like, it would cause too much outrage if like she comes in and does the thing that she probably was able to do had we had more film to back it up.
Yes.
But I wanted to go back to Thanos cooking like his like soup, and he's like getting a pinch of salt, and he's wearing this raggedy t-shirt, and it's just so sweet. It's so like this man just wants peace.
Yeah, I want to watch Into the Wild starring Thanos. Like, I just want to see a movie about his life and what he does now that he's achieved his goal.
Well, that's what made him interesting in Affinity War, is that he had this
Affinity War.
A war of affinity.
Sorry,
right, I'm done.
Get out.
No, why is he interesting?
Well, that he was very principled, where it wasn't, it was all about just like, I want to balance the universe, and once that's over, I just want to, watch the sun come up and set every day. And
right.
This is him in that role.
There's too much suffering in the universe, and I want to correct that, and here's how I think I can go about it. And while his logic is sound, his method is flawed, right? And that's what makes him a compelling villain, as opposed to just the standard, like, I must control the universe.
And he has these, like, sons and daughters that he seems to care about a lot.
Yes.
That gives him a lot of depth as well.
Yes.
And then and then the movie forgets about that compelling villain and says, we need a guy who just wants to destroy Earth because he's tired of it. And brings his huge army.
He's like, usually I don't feel
exactly
anything.
The same.
Yeah, he's like, usually I don't feel anything when I do this, but I'm going to enjoy destroying your planet.
Yeah, and so he goes back to, I'm going to control or destroy the universe.
Yeah, he just decides, you know what, fuck the half the universe thing. I'm going to just destroy all of it because you guys don't deserve it.
Yeah,
and there's a history to tell them.
A huge point that they're making there, and it's just like a sentence before they fight. It's like
before they punch him,
throw my first punch, I shall destroy the whole universe.
Right, and I didn't know he was he was a Shakespearean actor.
Well,
but you talk about he's a principled villain or just a person or whatever, purple boy, and
purple boy,
and then
purple boy, all about that purple boy.
Nice. But he, in like one sentence, he basically is like, you know what, fuck it. Like, I'm going to do something completely different than what I wanted to do.
Just rewrite all my motivations from the first movie.
Yeah. So very much a cop-out and just lazy.
I thought there was going to be a bigger bad guy, a bigger fish.
Me too.
Right? Like, I thought...
Like beyond Thanos?
Yes.
Beyonce.
Because there are villains beyond Thanos in the comics. There's fucking like,
Thanos is very
like Galactus
small,
or something like that.
Galactus is like another who eats the planets and stuff.
Yes, yeah. So like there are bigger fish to fry than Thanos, and I thought that the movie was going to open up to that to introduce this new villain.
There's another layer we didn't see in the first movie.
But instead, it's a fucking hour slog through them recollecting the Power Stones, so that literally every single person who's been in a Marvel movie could have their 5 seconds on screen.
Well, the time travel serves as a tool for them to create this nostalgia trip through the Marvel universe,
which is a whole other subject altogether. We could talk about nostalgia and this film for hours. That is the crux of why this franchise is successful and why it exists, is because it plays into that.
Well, and they definitely use that in this movie, where like they have cameos from like every imaginable like character from all these different movies.
Fucking Tommy Lee Jones wasn't in this movie for a second, that like Cap didn't see Tom, like,
where's James Spader?
Or James Spader. Yeah, or like have Ultron be a part of Thanos' army or something like that if he's able to, There were missed opportunities here for sure.
Well, they had when they first go back in time. So let's set up this movie. They decide that they want...
Why they didn't?
Ooh, got him. No, they set it up.
Got him.
It was pretty...
I got him.
They kill Thanos, realize that, like, hey, we've Ant-Man, as everyone has predicted since Infinity War came out, is like, Ant-Man's gonna come back and he's gonna be a guy that helps them figure out how to get back in time. That's what everyone said, and it happens just like they said. And so they're like, well, this is how you figure it out. Tony Stark is like, no way, I'll go back in time. I have my wife and kid. I'm good.
Which there were audible gasps when Tony Stark had a child, at least in my row. So we should preface this by saying that we because of the fucking hullabaloo of Avengers Endgame, we weren't able to sit together, so we had to have individual seats scattered throughout the theater. And so, therefore, we were able to kind of observe more purely, I guess, the audience reaction to this movie. And when Tony Stark like went out to the little tent or whatever, and he was like, and then the little girl comes out, people were like, I never thought he'd settle down.
Like that was the whole thing of his character in the Infinity War was like I'm done. Like there's no more surprises, is what he said. And then like immediately after that, of course, like I gotta go to space. He's like, we're gonna have a kid. Didn't she say that she was pregnant in Infinity War? Or did they just talk about like kid names?
And Jackson's seen it like 14 times at this point.
Yeah, how do you not know?
I'll have to rewatch it again when I get home. But as far as they don't, but I thought it was a good touch though, him having a kid.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, no, it didn't bother me at all. I liked the idea of Tony Stark settling down.
But Tony Stark,
it added weight to them, just like trucking into this time machine.
The decision to go forward with this plan that they had, right?
Right.
That's good beer.
It's really good.
It's fun to try it. So Ant-Man figures out you go back in time, and then Tony Stark, they're like, oh, we need a genius to help us. Tony Stark's like, no. And then he's like, oh, I figured it out. And then they're like, okay, you figured it out, now help us. And then they helped him, and then they're like going back in time. They go in 3 separate things. And then the first 3 separate teams, and they're all in different spots. So New York and Asgard, or not Asgard, but Mozag or
Mogard
and Vibrium, and then the first time they get back in, they go to New York, 2012 or whatever, and they have that. They just like replay from the movie, the first Avengers, when they're all circled up, and like there's fighting going on around them, and they have that pan. That camera pan around all the characters.
Can I just say, I have no idea how Jeremy Renner became like a Hollywood actor, because he is one of the ugliest fucking people that I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
Damn.
Yeah, he looks like a drawing. He looks like one of the 7 dwarves. He looks.
God damn.
He looks like sleepy. And I could tell that he had no. There were actually a couple moments where I could tell that the actors that had to come back for this one had literally no interest in starring in another Marvel movie.
Oh man, that's like half the people in this movie.
Yeah, like fucking Rene Russo and Jeremy Renner. Like
Tony Stark.
They thought they were done.
Robert Downey Jr.
And fucking Robert Downey Jr. I did like. And I know I'm just being played by CGI, but I did like how kind of emaciated they made him look in that first.
I noticed that
scene,
when he's
and
like,
coming back,
like 60 pounds underweight.
Yeah, it added to the immersion, right?
Like, he just survived the space holocaust.
Yeah, right. It was one thing that that added to my ability to kind of like get immersed in the movie that eventually got broken once they started doing their dumb Power Stone search.
That scene was also where he's emaciated and he's like, "You did this, Captain." That was a little bit dramatic for me, where he like rips off his Iron Man,
and there's no blood.
Light, and
rips
he's like,
out an IV out of his arm.
"Take my heart."
Take my heart. Here's my blue heart.
Captain, you had it 30 years ago. Just take it.
It's yours.
They falls very dramatically. Yeah.
But I felt like the worst actor award in this movie goes to Mark Ruffalo for me.
Oh, interesting.
Because you can tell when he's not acting towards someone, like in that scene where he's talking to Doctor Strange's like master, where he's like, "No, we really need that stone."
Yeah, but we really need it.
I feel like he's like,
that's Tilda Swinton.
No,
right?
I agree. The CGI was not quite on with Hulk, but also too, just Mark Ruffalo I think is really fucking tired of making Marvel movies.
I don't think he gets the humor either, like, or he can't deliver their humor.
I don't get the humor.
I thought he was kind of funny. I didn't laugh at anything, I should say.
The first scene,
but I thought Mark Ruffalo was probably him and Chris Hemsworth were the funniest characters.
I didn't find anything funny about Mark Ruffalo myself, but
I just like his delivery. He's just like, I don't know if we should like do that. And it's like, yeah, it's tired, but it's also like just kind of like charming and refreshing when everyone's performing. It's like he's just like fucking disheveled.
I liked the first scene in the diner. Okay, where like
has,
he's
like, the kid's
introducing
next
himself,
song.
and then the kids come up and they're like, "Oh my God, are you Hulk?" And then you have the Paul Rudd moment where he's like, "I'm Ant-Man. Do you want to take a picture with me?" And they're like, "Nah."
He's like, "No, take a picture with him. Come on."
Which I actually I appreciated because so Paul Rudd has like a long-standing tradition of going on Conan O'Brien, right? And every time that he has a new movie out, they're like, "Let's see a clip from the movie," and they show a clip from Mac and Me, which is this weird movie about a Coca-Cola drinking alien.
Let's take a look at this clip from Our Idiot Brother.
But anyways, he was telling a story on Conan O'Brien where he was talking to his son, and he was like, "Look, I get to be in the next Marvel movie." And his son was like, "Oh my God, like, who are you going to be? Are you going to be Captain America? Or are you going to be the Hulk?" And he's like, "No, I'm going to be Ant-Man." His son was like, "Ant-Man? Who the fuck is Ant-Man?" And so I almost wondered if, like, there were a couple scenes where I wondered if Paul Rudd was like, wouldn't it be funny if we did this? And I think another example of that is when he's eating the tacos, and then the ship lands with Rocky Raccoon, as I like to call him, and someone else, and all of like the lettuce and the meat flies out of his taco, and then the Hulk walks past, and he just reaches out and hands 2 tacos.
But he's like,
him.
like cheesing. He's like super happy about the fact that he gets to like help him out with his tacos.
Yes.
I thought it was just like, actually, I might have laughed at that. I forget.
Yes. So I thought that was like maybe an interesting meta commentary on everything. I don't know. I guess I'm grasping.
So
Bit of a grasp.
I'm gonna. This is the official big spoiler. So if you haven't seen this movie, this will ruin the ending
Fucking
for you.
shut it off. Okay, if you haven't already, shut it off.
Yeah, these spoilers are minor spoilers.
This is the big one. What did you guys think of the death of Tony Stark?
What? He's dead?
Don't worry, no one's ever really dead in this, so they'll just find another time machine. And
All
we'll
I
save
know
them,
is
but-
that nerd tears poured down my cheeks. Literally, there was a puddle in my lap from
no.
all of the tears that were being shed over Tony
They were
Stark.
shooting out of their
pants.
eyes.
Yes,
Their tear
I
ducts.
shit and came in my pants at the same time, which is not an
you shitted
uncommon
and cummed.
experience.
Shitted and
yeah.
farted.
I sh- Yes, I did.
Oh, you love it.
Well, it's
That meme.
It is
Jim
a meme.
Halpert. Have you seen the Jim Halpert one?
Oh, I haven't seen the Jim Halpert version of that.
When Jim Halpert in the office asks out Pam, she's like doing like an interview in the conference room, and Jim opens the door and he's like, "Would you like to go out with me?" And all that. She's like, "Oh yeah, sure." And then like he closes the door and leaves, and then she's like kind of like happy but like kind of crying, and then the meme is just him opening the door and be like, and then the caption is like, "I shitted and farted," and then the
her
next
crying.
picture is her, and she's crying and laughing. It's amazing. If look it up. Anyways, what were you saying? What do
Tony
we
Stark
think about
died.
his death?
Yeah, like do you think they did it tastefully? Did it resonate with you at all?
I couldn't have cared less about, and nor do I think Robert Downey Jr. could have cared less.
Dude, he didn't say anything. I mean, besides "I am Iron Man."
There wasn't any like that. Pepper, I love her.
I laughed at the idea that he was trying to kill himself repeatedly while they were filming this movie. Like he would just like trying to like lay down, and they're like, "Not yet, not yet, not yet."
Oh, like in the beginning where he's like, "You did this, Captain America. This is your fault." Oh, I'm dead. I took my heart off.
Okay, cut. Now this isn't the dying
Please,
scene.
Robert,
Yeah,
Robert,
please.
You gotta wait.
we paid you a lot of money.
We got
Please.
2 more months.
We know the check's been cashed. Okay.
No, they shot. You think they just like shot the death scene so that like in the beginning so that like he just get it over with. They're just like, okay, we gotta like recreate the whole new set. Like he keeps trying to die. We just gotta get it over with. I thought it was expected. I think Captain America and Iron Man were going to be. I mean, we talk about like contract stuff. Everyone knew that they weren't going to be in the next films. Like they're done. Like they're just done. They're not.
Robert Downey Jr.'s retirement from the Marvel universe has been well known at this point. I think he's
same
been
with
trying
Chris
to get
Evans.
out of it.
Yeah, and
Chris
so I
Evans
felt
as
like
well.
okay, I kind of thought that Captain America would also die. I didn't really expect him to be I didn't really going into it expect that to happen. The way of him going back in the time and like putting back the stones where they belonged, and then just living out his life, which honestly makes sense. The film kind of sets it up in a really quick way because they have other characters to deal with. But I did expect either him or Iron Man to die, and so it was fine. I didn't care, I guess.
Don't care. What about you, Addison?
Well, I guess I would sum it up by saying that just about everything, with the exception of the first hour with like beer drinking Thor and Weird Hulk, everything about this movie was expected for me. Like the things, I thought that my imagination was so much like less than the people who make these movies, but watching this, it was everything that I expected it to be, and it's kind of disappointing in that regard.
Even the way he died.
I mean, I didn't like predict exactly the way that he died, that he would, essentially sacrifice himself. That's not true. I
actually did.
I did at the moment that that Doctor Strange, one of his like 2 lines in the movie, where he's like, "Tell me how it ends," and he's like, "I can't tell you, otherwise it won't come true."
Yeah.
And then it's okay, so Captain America sacrifices himself, or Iron Man, or whatever the fuck his name is.
I thought it
He
was
sacrifices
having.
himself.
I shall admit, I was spoiled this movie.
You were.
By someone else, and mainly because I asked for it. They had seen a press screening, and I was like, "Tell me." And they didn't tell me how. They just told me the big stuff that I was asking, or I was like predicting, and they were confirming or denying all that stuff. I still thought it was a nice touch that Tony Stark used like a sleight of hand trick, like a very clever way to get the stones back from Thanos. And it was his own technology.
Well, apparently these stones just fall out of like gloves. Like they might as well not even like be attached to them in certain ways.
The way that they were put in there kind of was weird, and it like felt like otherworldly technology that doesn't quite make sense. And so I kind of just bought the fact that like he's using his glove is able to like transport them into another of his own gloves, because that glove that he was wearing in Thanos was
something that Tony Stark made.
Yeah,
right.
And so
there's a lot of like technicalities there where it's just, like it seems like the stones are like he like built his glove on his suit to be able to like magnetize the stones. But the way that I felt about it is that there's utter fucking mayhem in like the ending of this movie, where it reminded me of like as a kid when you had these like real-time strategy games on your computer where you could like hack it and then just like stack like thousands of like
Of units.
characters like just and have them like clash. That's what that felt like to me at the end, where they like open all these portals, all the good guys are coming out,
and there was so much fucking applause.
a bunch of applause.
That
and
was
also,
the applause I was waiting for.
Yeah.
like I enjoyed just like this kind of like Captain America, Thor, Iron Man versus Thanos fight, and then all of a sudden you have like these armies just like come out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden they start fighting.
Yeah, I was like
All of a sudden
really
they start fighting, but
I was like scared.
All of a sudden they start fighting.
and the fighting.
And there's a lot of just and then they fight.
And then they fight,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're supposed to
Yes.
have this meaningful death, like right in the middle of it.
Oh right.
Yeah, I mean,
And then they die.
I guess maybe in one way the movie surprised me, but probably a better word for it would be disappointed me. Was I expected? I didn't think the movie was going to be solely the main Avengers for like 2/3 of it. I thought we would get more characters early on. And on one hand, I guess I appreciate from the perspective like this is the Avengers movie, so of course they're going to have the sole Avengers. But at the same time, it's like I was getting tired of these characters by the time everyone else got brought through the magic circles.
I thought they would bring the other ones in sooner too. Like basically they don't have anybody who got snapped out of it. They're there for a fight and then that's it.
For literally one line to like look just beyond the camera and say something slightly gimmicky, and that was it. And then
also-
you saw him fighting.
Also the scene where like Tony Stark is just like basically like slipping away, and then you have like people like pushing each other out of the way to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Specifically Peter Parker and and
Pepper Potts.
Pepper Potts.
Yes.
Well, double P's for the both.
What do you think about Pepper Potts all of a sudden just like being
Knowing how to
Iron
use a
Woman?
suit?
There was some gasps in my row when they saw that. Some gasps that led to like minor applause.
Like her using the suit?
They were thrilled. Yes.
Nothing means anything in this universe.
Yeah. I think like a thing that was really interesting for like Captain America, Winter Soldier, or even any of the Avengers movies is like the reason that there's such a big draw is like these characters interact with each other when they normally don't because they have standalone movies, and so they're in rooms and they're quipping and they're doing their things.
They're figuring each other out.
Or they're like fighting each other too.
Or they're
like
just,
that was what made Avengers really cool.
Even just like fighting the fuck out,
like Iron Man and Hulk fighting, or Iron Man and Thor fighting. Remember, and that's the forest and the wintry forest. It was fucking awesome. It was a great scene.
And I felt like this movie was more of they're doing it again. Like we got to go separate ways. And then even when they're in their own micro interactions, it's very much limited and there's no like charm to it. It's very like who is it? It's Captain America, Tony Stark, and Hulk, Ant-Man, who go to New York City, and it's just like they're like doing like this like wacky heist, like they're trying to get
it's a time heist,
the Tesseract, and like they mess up, and then Thor or Thanos is like, I don't know, it's just like bullshit in terms of like what made Avengers interesting, and you just go away from that completely.
So I feel like the only people who aren't tired of this shit at this point are the audience. I got the sense that the directors, the writers, the actors, the producers, all of them are tired of this shit, tired of the storyline. And it was something that I thought about a lot while I was watching this movie, of like what the greater significance of this is. Like, I think I maybe saw a handful of kids, like maybe 5 to 10 children.
I was sitting next to some kids.
But the majority of the people in the theater were adults. And they were gasping and they were applauding and they were weeping.
Well, so
they were openly weeping amongst other adults about this movie. And for me it signaled something truly troubling.
What's that?
Well, it's on one hand it's like it's great, like they enjoy these movies and like maybe it reminds them of their childhood and it makes them happy, and who the fuck am I to like say anything about that? If it makes them happy, do it. But on the other hand, it's really fucking sad that these people who are probably wage slaves, you know, like they probably make $8.25 an hour working at fucking King Soopers or Good Times or McDonald's or whatever it is.
Like 15 an hour.
And it's like literally the only thing that they have to look forward to in this world is the next Star Wars or Marvel movie. And it's just perverse.
I don't know if I would like shit on them that hard. Like there's definitely those people that like maybe are obsessed with this, you know, pretty meaningless corporate slop to the point of detriment in their personal lives.
But
like,
they define their personalities by it.
They define their personalities by it, and also their consumption of media. Like they're not advancing their appreciation of movies beyond just like, I like the superheroes. I like it when they two that haven't met each other yet meet.
When a guy he punched a guy and then the other guy.
Wow, I never seen Captain America. He picked up Thor's hammer. And we knew he couldn't because like you're not worthy of it.
He worthy now.
So many cream jeans.
Well, okay, I will say
hammer.
that when, as you know, I am
huge fan.
I am a huge fan of Harry Potter.
Oh no!
And when the last movie came out,
were you gasping?
I was very emotional, but I was also 14 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's an acceptable time to be emotional about a thing that at the time didn't really define me, but like was a huge part of like who I was as a person.
You've grown a lot in 2 years.
You love that joke.
I do.
But I understand that like I think most people, the majority of people use materialistic things to define them. Whether it's sports,
it's fucking simulacra and simulation, bruh. It goes all the way back to Baudrillard. This fucking Marvel movie is an example of a copy of a copy of a copy of a representation that has come to be reality. I mean,
It's mind's blown, bro.
there are things to unravel here as far as why people engage with and absorb this media in the way that they do. Like there's a greater sociological trend that's happening with this.
Well, Jackson, you had an interesting question about, or at least I think it's just from us talking, I think is interesting now. Do we obviously aren't crazy about this movie. Do we think that the audience would be?
I think that they...
I mean, that's the question you asked.
It is a question I asked, and maybe to answer my own question, I think that maybe they were left wanting in a certain respect, but I think for a lot of them, like as long as there's another Captain Marvel movie, they'll be happy about it. And this movie does set up... There's going to be another Guardians of the Galaxy movie. There's going to be another Captain Marvel movie. This universe is continuing.
In perpetuity. It's just going to keep going and going.
It's going to keep going now
until people stop seeing them.
Maybe I don't have the answer to this, and I don't necessarily have like a prediction I'm confident with, but I don't know how successful it's going to be without Tony Stark, without Tony Stark, and without Chris Evans as Captain America, and then like who is Thor now? Is he just like a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy? You know, you have they're going to have to do a bit of rebranding here, and I don't know how successful they're going to be.
I feel like this movie piggybacked on Infinity War is an example of the law of diminishing returns, right? And we talked about that at length as far as like they were trying to recycle a villain, they're trying to recycle a conflict, etc. What could they possibly do different with this next generation or whatever of superheroes?
Right, like who's the next Thanos?
Who knows? But, we know who the next Captain America is, I guess, and we know that there's a Spider-Man movie coming out.
We also know that Disney bought Fox, and so now they have the rights to Fantastic Four and X-Men.
Yes.
So now they can do crossovers.
That's going to be the big thing, I think, moving forward, is that they're going to be introducing other characters. I just don't see a tasteful
way of doing that. I just don't, like, I think it's going to...
you don't work for Disney, so fuck off.
Yeah, you clearly don't know how to introduce...
Tasteful? Mm-mm.
They will have a gay black man as some sort of minor character who doesn't matter to the film in the next film. Okay,
I would say this: having a franchise doesn't entitle you to success, because DC has been proof of that. So I would say that Marvel going forward isn't entitled to success. They're going to have some sort of overall plan to go forward, or idea. Like, there's some clever writing in the Marvel universe up to this point.
Sure.
So they're going to have to recreate that in some sense to basically reboot this universe, because it needs a reboot.
They just got to start plucking those indie motherfuckers.
That's like basically what they did. Yeah.
They just got to get those... This all goes back to Captain Marvel.
It kind of does, because Captain Marvel is like the... Because this movie was filmed last year or fucking 2 years ago.
Filmed at the same time.
They filmed Infinity War and Endgame at the same time. So Captain Marvel could be like a pretty good barometer as far as where Marvel is planning to go, which I assume would be more inclusive, different directors and talent behind the cameras. But I don't care, and especially after this movie, I don't care. Yeah, I don't have another 22 films in me. I just don't.
So wait for our Spider-Man Homecoming, or Spider-Man whatever the next movie is called, review.
It's called
Homecoming. It looks fucking stupid.
Or no,
it's really
called
bad.
Far Away From Home.
Superhero movies peaked with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It will never get more better than that.
Even if there's a small chance, we owe this to everyone who's not in this room to try.
We will.
Joshua, would you recommend this movie?
Yeah, if you want to see how it ends, I recommend it.
Interesting. Jackson, would you recommend this movie?
Yeah, I guess, if you have watched the Marvel movies up to this point, I don't think you have a choice, as far as, if you care at all, which you must have if you willingly watched all these movies, you're going to see this movie. If you have given up along the way, you probably made the right decision. Also,
That's where I was at.
in my closing remarks, I think that they actually like the end of Chris Evans's Captain Marvel was tastefully done. You know, they could have just had like both of them die or get stuck in the past or something like that. But I like the scene where they're like, he should just be back in 5 seconds, and then they're like, you know, wait. Where is he? Where is he? Something went wrong, and then they turn
Who's
around.
that corpse on the bench over there?
Old man, who are you?
Yeah, it's me, Captain.
Which they kind of set that up where he like slips into an office earlier in the movie, and he sees the love of his life, which I like, didn't make
set it up. Oh my god, you talk about just a fucking moment. Like, no one even verbalized that they feel that way.
What a moment.
I couldn't even make it that far into the first Captain America movie. That was so bad.
It was really boring. It's really boring.
Addison, what about you? Would you recommend this movie?
How many times will we watch this movie?
I mean, I guess in the context of, this is the culmination of 22 movies and 11 plus years of hard work. Sure, go see it if you like this shit.
I don't think you should see it in theaters, actually. Don't support this movie.
Oh, bullshit.
Don't financially support this movie.
This movie is like already one of the most successful movies in history.
Why couldn't we just wait?
But ultimately, would I recommend this movie blind? No.
Did you like this movie? I'm just kidding.
Did I like this movie? Not really.
You wouldn't just recommend this movie like as if like, hey, do you like movies? You should check this movie out.
This movie does not play well into that suggestion.
No, absolutely not. This movie is pure product. It exists for a very specific reason, and people will play into that, and they will go see it, and it'll spawn many, many, many different sequels. My recommendation, beyond the fact that nobody watches this shit, is irrelevant, but it's especially irrelevant in the face of that. This is a juggernaut. There's nothing that's going to stop this. That said, this was vastly inferior to Infinity War, which I found to be a pretty refreshing direction in the Marvel franchise, whatever. And they have their work cut out for them. That's what I'll say. They have their work cut out for them if they want to try to bring back even half of the audience that existed for this initial run of movies, because it was a novelty. It was new. It was fun. It was cool. Oh my God, we're gonna go see a superhero movie, and it's actually gonna be good. It's not gonna be Steel with Shaq. Which, by the way, look for the Steel review podcast, because that's gonna happen.
Okay, but are you talking about Kazam?
No, I'm talking about Shaq and Steel.
Remember Kazam though?
I do remember Kazam. I remember the
little Jewish kid in his basketball team?
I do. And Shaq had a magic boombox. Anyway,
Kazam review coming up.
If you have any questions, concerns, complaints, please email us.
Hey, we made it.
We made it. Thought we weren't going to make it.
We made it through the Avengers.
I'm pooping right now.